Alright, welcome back to the March live stream for the Mike Makes Stuff Patreon. If you're just catching up with us from last time, which is about a week and a half ago, I'm doing a piece of Iron Fist fan art. It's like Photoshop is being a pain in the butt. There we go. So the reference is, here's my sketch from last time. And when I closed last time, I basically said I need to go get some reference and worked a little bit on the Black History Month piece. And that was pretty true. Had some other obligations that I dealt with last week and did not get around to doing the live stream, but we're here now, and I'm going to try again on Friday, regularly scheduled programming. So let's talk a little bit about reference. Obviously this image here has a lot of anatomy, and I'm going to try to do as much of it as possible on my own. My basic modus operandi is to sketch something in, start to figure out the anatomy on my own, and go get some reference, come back, and firm things up. It's a good way to see what you're getting right and see what you're not getting right, to discover what parts of the complexities of human anatomy you're not quite paying attention to. And if I'm looking at this, I think really the biggest problem here is that he's kind of getting extended. This makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily make sense with this, and with this, his wrists are pretty thin, and the rendering here just isn't great. The fingers, I think, are kind of making the whole rest of the thing look weird. And the neck muscles here are creating this impression of a Fu Manchu. It's not really what I'm going for. The purple guys are distracting, so we're going to get rid of them for now and just focus on the center. So if you've not, I don't think I've shown this before, this is Daz. Daz is a free modeling program. It comes with a fully articulated model. This is the Genesis model. There's more, the Genesis 3 and the Genesis 2 are more advanced, and they've got separate male and female and stuff like that. Whereas the Genesis 1 has a male and female slider. You can see there's a couple of different ways that you can manipulate the figure. I generally find that the Genesis 3 is a lot easier to pose. But because I can't turn off its skin texture and get back to this gray, the features of the figure itself start to invade the rendering a little bit more than I'd like. This is it's very vague, it's not distracting. I can start reconstructing the face or changing things with the muscles, and I don't feel anchored in as much. He also does not have eyebrows. So that's something to keep an eye out for while you're working if you choose to use this. And there are haptic controls where if you just click, you can move it. But until you've gotten some experience, that can be a very frustrating way to get things done because it can tug other pieces of the anatomy. And I often find that I have to kind of turn and then move a piece of the body. So this is what I do, and then I go in and I make changes from there. Like his legs here look a little bit weird, and we know that they fit right, therefore shortening is a little strange. We've got the little duck wings here from the lats, latissimus dorsi, but overall I think it works and it helps us figure out what's going on wrong. What I do is I just take a screenshot. I've already done that. And so let's get back to Photoshop. figure reference here, crop it, paste it, put it on the layers behind, make it a little bit opaque so that it's easier to see what's going on. And then we start to fit it in to our composition. And what I quickly see is that I've got the idea down, but I have his shoulders way up, kind of looking down on him. Wonder if this would change if I tilted it, right? Actually look down on him a little bit like that. And in a way, that's a lot more accurate to what I had drawn here originally. Maybe. This is head on. This is what I just looked at. That. And that also deals with the weird leg for shortening problems where I go back to here. Alright, and he's basically fit into our composition now. Let's get rid of this old layer. Turn the opacity on this guy down. Okay. And I'm basically going to turn this off because really this is the sketch and it's not useful anymore. And then I'm going to go in and get a brush, get the non-photo blue that I just find useful. It's not really pragmatic at this point, but it's nice to know. This should be a brush. Non-photo blue used to be a variety of cyan that would not be read by a scanner or copier, but scanners and copiers have now advanced to the point where that no longer is the case, and obviously does nothing digitally except be kind of uninvasive while working your way through a piece. I always find the ears really distracting, just in general, but particularly when a character is wearing a cowl or doesn't have hair or something like that. So one of the things I'll have to do later is add in his eyebrows, which can be a little fussy, as well as add in his hair, his ears, unique facial features. Because if you don't invest any energy in really giving some identity to his face, he just kind of looks like an alien. Fairly handsome alien, all things considered, but an alien nonetheless. And then you kind of have to approximate where your hairline comes in. You remember the skull actually does go behind the ears. The hair certainly will. that neck muscle can be really helpful in creating the kind of vascular effect that we associate with a real character and a powerfully built character. Veins in the hands are really good to look at. Avengers and look at the renderings of the Hulk. And not only are his hands very, very large, large enough to the point that we make merchandise called Hulk hands, but they're very vascular. The neck is very vascular. It's constantly churning. He's, inhaling and exhaling heavily. There's something. There's a kind of primal reference there. So Netflix show comes out on Friday. There's been some early reviews. They're not great. I prefer to make up my own opinion after I've actually watched something, because critics in general, their business is not liking things, which is not to discount their opinions, but just that their opinion is not necessarily the be-all and end-all. Plenty of things that pop culture has decided are relevant and important and meaningful, and are important and meaningful because they are to the people who watch them, that critics have no appetite for, and vice versa. So, that's my 2 cents. Until Friday when I've actually watched some of it. Even then I'll probably keep my lips sealed until I watch all of it. Because I would like to give the benefit of the doubt to other people's work the same way I would like them to do for me, where I create something like that. And I have a great deal of sympathy for people who make work these days. I think it's very challenging. You spend a lot of time, we're talking months, years, putting energy into something, and I think a lot of the time people just tear it down without a real appreciation of the energy that goes into it, and the challenges of being a creator. I think there's kind of an all or nothing gotcha approach to watching or consuming entertainment on the internet, where, particularly if something's very popular, it's in vogue to not like it, to have never watched it, to take umbrage with it. I don't know, I'm rambling. At least I'm talking. That I have to assume is better than total silence. You can always press the mute button. I particularly like Daz for some of the stuff with the legs. Legs can be really complicated and they can be really simple. You'll watch a lot of artists, I think, if you open a comic book, particularly stuff from the 80s, who just really don't have a grasp on legs and the muscles within there, and they kind of draw them the same from every angle, and there's no flex to the muscles within it, and that's certainly expeditious, which is part of it if you're a working artist, but I don't think it's ideal. Alright, so now what happens? It's probably hard for you to see. We've come a long way from this and this. But I think that when we add this, we get an idea of something and it starts to look really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and give him pants. We're going to have a sash. We're going to have bracers. We're not going to have boots with a top piece or a mask. First, I lay things in fairly roughly. This belly button's going to be right here, so I feel like this is a pretty appropriate height. Some wrinkles are going to be here, and the light's going to be coming from around here. These are not necessarily individual lights, they're just indications of light. So we'll have shadows through here and through here. What I'm really going to focus on now is just laying in pencil. Get the pencil brush that I like. Looser, rougher, more rough. Trying to create some wraparound as an indication of dimension. And it's not uncommon for me to have to go through and re-specify or redraw folds and stuff like that, because it's kind of a process of figuring out exactly where that stuff is and why it's working that way, and it's all an approximation of a living material, since I don't have that material in front of me, and that's a little exhausting in terms of getting research reference for satin or silk or whatever specific thing this is. And I usually will only do that if I think it's super important and I'm having a really hard time getting it to look the way I want it to. I could probably be going through this a little bit more lightly. Really working it up stage by stage. But that's part of what I did for the Black History Month piece, and it ended up taking forever. So, being a little bit more liberal here. And I'm also trying to avoid working on this piece on my personal time. It's my personal time, there's no such thing. I'm trying to avoid there being big jumps between stages like there was before. Like I said, the viewership on this is not huge. I don't think anybody's educating themselves, but I'm interested in sharing the process and there being some transparency in that. And every time there's a significant jump in the progress of a piece from one session to another, that makes it harder for anyone who is watching to know what's going on there. considerably better. There wasn't really a dominant fold going through that piece. There's just kind of a little underfolds, and it made them look pudgy. It's a little bit early for me to scrap something like that, but I'd rather not commit to it. I like where it is now, and we're gonna have to add some secondary motion later, so something like that. Maybe not the same. Maybe not that over here. We know we're gonna get some wraparound. I like that. And I find that at closure points, these kind of thin athletic materials, not like a compression gear, but something like harem pants, I guess, are likely to have a lot of folds in a small space, so that's going to be here, and we're going to have a larger dark spot. And what I'm doing is really kind of the opposite how I penciled the last piece, which is keeping things loose and rough, but starting to be specific. And then I'll go in and actually lay over this in the ink phase, which is more traditional for what you might see in a actual comic book or illustration format. The idea, particularly when leveraging the valuable tools of the digital platform, is to not repeat work. Could be better about that. Again, with this closure here, so we can get some folds. a second to drink some coffee. That is not even. The title of tonight's episode is Symmetry is a Pain in the Ass. So what's going on here isn't necessarily that Danny's lips are so thin but that they're very foreshortened as a result of this position. And I think we can see some of that here. I'm going to see a bit more of his bottom lip. I think I've inadvertently made Danny look much wiser and older than he's supposed to be. I'm going to leave it for the time being because I think it's going to be useful for throwing in shading and such. And I just kind of like how the face looks. talks about proportional. luckily, we're going to have an inking phase in which I'll resolve all of this. I have been drawing on the wrong one. I can attempt to resolve that, but I don't believe that's going to be a very effective solution. It really didn't take a lot to make him look significantly stronger. pretty much done for tonight. But I think that we've got a really great start here. It's moved on pretty significantly from the beginning. And I'll probably see you again on Friday. I feel like there should be some sort of distinguishing shadow here. There's a little bit of something indicated in the 3D model, but not a hell of a lot. Alright, well thanks for tuning in, and until next time, make more stuff.